Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you like home arcade and Arcade1up, then hit that subscribe button. We're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things today. Smash that like button. Come on, show this channel some love. So check this out. What we're going to be talking about today is how you can take an 8-in-1 Pac-Man partycade, take all the guts from that, all the electronics, all the internals, and you put that in your original Pac-Man Arcade1up, the 3/4 scale side. Now, specifically, I'm talking about the unit that only has 2 games in it. What you can do is basically upgrade your hardware from a 2-in-1 to an 8-in-1 by transplanting all those parts from the partycade. So I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to talk about the pitfalls, the possibilities, the perils, and the promise. And tell me if you know what movie that's from down in the comments. So check this out. Here are the things that you're going to have to worry about. So the buttons, can you take all the buttons from the partycade and put it in the control panel of that older Pac-Man and Galaga unit? You can, but it's not going to have all the same holes in it, right? So the original Pac-Man had 0 action buttons, whereas the HSN Pac-Man partycade has 3 action buttons on it. So we're going to talk more about the different options for making that mod work in a little bit. But I want to talk about the power button and the volume button. This is awesome because the partycade has the upgraded volume where you can actually use a slider to turn up and down the volume. But those original Pac-Man and Galaga units, they did not have that. They just had a switch that's just off, low, and really, really high. So does those buttons fit? Yeah, like a glove, man. It's so cool. Everything fits so perfect. You can totally take the hardware from the partycade and put that right in the control panel when it comes to the power and the volume. And you got to bring the entire encoder board, everything that plugs in with. What's cool is all of those buttons from the encoder, you can disconnect those buttons on the partycade. So it's actually going to make it really easy to do that upgrade. So now I want to talk about the monitor. Now this is very important. So make sure you listen very clearly and listen closely to this. So the original Pac-Man or Galaga that you have, you're going to want to look at that and see what the brand is. Now, if the brand is BOE, that means you already have the upgraded monitor. And it's possible, although I haven't tried, that the PCB from the partycade is just going to plug right into that. I believe it will work. But one thing I discourage you from doing is leaving the original Pac-Man monitor from your 3/4 scale cabinet if it does not say BOE. The reason why is because the monitor that's not BOE is a completely different resolution monitor. It's a completely different aspect ratio, and there's no device to do that translation. So if you plug the partycade component, into the monitor and it's the wrong monitor type, you could cause some damage. So I just want to get that disclaimer out there. But if you want to be free from all that, this is my recommendations anyway. Take the monitor from the partycade. You already know it works. And just put that in whatever unit you're putting it in. Just bring that monitor with you. Now, I thought this wouldn't work because I thought the dimensions would be different. The actual monitor mount that holds the monitor are different. And that's true. But you know what's really cool? If you unscrew the hardware of the monitor, it's a drop-in replacement to the wood from the original Pac-Man 3/4 scale cabinet. The actual hole between the 2 monitors are the same. It's like, even though the original one is a 5:4 aspect ratio, the monitor is slightly different. They put the 4:3 monitor in a 5:4 shell. There's a little bit of gap around the side to just kind of fill in. So it totally works. But now we're going to talk about the bezel. And there's a little bit of issue with the bezel. Now, keep this in mind. You're going to bring the bezel from the partycade with you because that bezel is designed for that monitor, that aspect ratio. But that bezel is not designed for a 3/4 scale cabinet. So you're going to have a little bit of gap on the side on the bezel. And the bezel is actually going to go up higher into the marquee. Now, normally the marquee actually attaches to the monitor mount. I wasn't able to do that, but it kind of works anyway. You basically just don't screw the marquee in, and the bezel is up in there, adding a little bit of pressure, and you can get everything to fit, and nothing's moving around. So that was my solution. Let me know if you come up with a different one. We can share that with the community. But I didn't really have any issues with the bezel there. But we're going to talk about the gap on the side. This could be an eyesore for some, especially if you have the exact unit that I have. So what they typically do on the newer cabinets is they paint that wood. So if there's any cracks on the side where you can kind of see the wood, it's going to look fine. But the original cabinet that I had, you can see the wood. And because there's the gap, you can see all the wood right there. And so what you would want to do is paint that, right? So it's not small enough that you could paint it with a Sharpie. You're probably going to want to go get some flat black paint and actually paint that. If you're going down that, that's probably the hardest part. I failed to mention, this entire mod is pretty much only a screwdriver, and this one part I'm talking about right now where you'll need some paint. And you can get this all going with maybe just a little bit of paint. The other thing is the bezel itself does not fit on where the holes are on that monitor mount. So you're going to have to get some self-tapping screws and, line that sucker up really, really good and then screw that in. Now, if you get any excess dirt in that area, I recommend before you fully attach the bezel, get a can of air and make sure there's no dirt anywhere near there. Because if you get a speck of dirt behind that bezel and on that monitor, it's really going to annoy you. So what I did was I actually drilled small little pilot holes and then got all the dirt off. And I did this all with the monitor completely far away from while I was doing the drilling, so they got no dirt on that. And then I blew canned air on the monitor, make sure it's completely clean. And I blew canned air all inside the bezel, and then I screwed it all in, and it looks great. I got it all cleaned up, and there's no issue there. So that brings us to this last point. I left this to last because I think there's a lot to talk about here. I don't know exactly what arcade cabinet you have. Is it the Pac-Man? Is it the Galaga? Those are the 3/4 scale cabinets that can basically get these upgrades. It's any of those vertical cabinets. I guess Space Invaders would work as well if you wanted to do this mod on Space Invaders. So any of those vertical cabinets that are those first generation, I think are worthy to be in this discussion because they only had like 2 games on them, right? But all of these partycades, they have 8 games on it. So it's perfect, for you're going from 2 games to 8 games. That's perfect. But all those combinations I just talked about is going to have a different control panel, right? And it's not only the Pac-Man partycade that you can get. There's a Miss Pac-Man partycade. And I don't think there's anything wrong with buying a Miss Pac-Man partycade and taking the guts out of that and putting it in your original Pac-Man 3/4 scale from 2018. Like, that would totally work. I mean, who cares that, it's a Pac-Man unit, but the primary game is Miss Pac-Man? If that's the game setup you want, this will totally work for you. But again, all those different partycades have a different number of buttons on it, and all those Arcade1up 3/4 scales have a different number of buttons on it. So you're going to have to figure out which number of buttons you need to add. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you go with the Miss Pac-Man partycade, but you're going to put it in a Galaga. So you're going to need to drill a hole where the joystick is to kind of route out the joystick because that's got a 2-way block on it. The piece of wood itself is making it so you can only use it in 2 directions. But all those other games are like, I think all of them are 4-way games. Maybe there's one game on there that's an 8-way game. So either way, you're going to have to drill a circle there. But that's not too bad, right? Like, go to Home Depot, get a drill bit, and drill that in. You probably already have a drill bit. So you can expand that there. The joystick on the Galaga is not a big deal. But what about the other buttons? Well, the Galaga has 1 button already, but the Miss Pac-Man has 2 buttons, 2 action buttons. So you'll have to drill a second button. I'll give you another quick example. Say you have the original Pac-Man that has no action buttons, but you're going to get the Partycade Pac-Man that has 3 buttons on it. So you're going to want to drill 3 new buttons, and you're going to want to get them in a row. Now, I'm going to link you to a video from Retro Ralph where Retro Ralph did a very similar mod to an original Pac-Man. He did something kind of clever where the joystick goes, he actually put a button there and then added 2 buttons next to it, and actually drilled a new hole over to the left where the ghosts are for where the joystick goes. That's another option. And finally, the last option is checking out some of the aftermarket control panel makers. There's some problems with that too, but maybe these guys would be interested in doing some one-off builds. So I'm thinking of like Tulsa Arcades, maybe Shane from DIY Retro Arcades. They sell these control panels, but all the control panels that they sell, to my knowledge, don't have a cutout for the power button and the volume button. So if you were to purchase one of theirs, they do have configurations where it's a joystick plus 3 buttons, mainly because it's made for the Pac-Man 60-in-1 mod, but that Pac-Man 60-in-1 mod has typically 3 buttons on it, and if you wanted to go to the Partycade, that's also 3 buttons, and that could totally work, except for you're going to want to ask them to drill 2 holes because you're going to bring your power switch and the volume. Reach out to those guys and see if they're willing to do that. And if they have any questions, I know those guys, tell them to reach out to Console Kits, and I can explain exactly what the mod is, and they can work out their fees with you or whatever for doing that extra work, or maybe they'll just throw it in. I'm not really sure, but I can describe to them exactly like what they're going to need to do for that control panel, if that makes it easier for you. But the main idea was, what if you could do this on the cheap, but you don't want to go to a computer, you don't want to get a Raspberry Pi, and you don't want to download anything. You like the menus from the Arcade1up, and you love the game lineup from the Partycades, and you just wish that was on a 3/4 scale cabinet. And I'm telling you, it's totally possible. You can totally do it. I did it. And the only thing you really have to worry about is that bezel. Maybe add a little paint to fix that, and drill a couple holes for your buttons. You bring all the hardware over with you, it's totally going to work. So if you've enjoyed this video and this is helpful for you, please like and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any questions, anything that I missed out from this video. If you have any more, please do not hesitate to ask. I will respond to it and try to help you out as much as I can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to watch Retro Ralph and I on the 1UP Weekly, where we talk about whatever home arcade stuff that we want to talk about every Sunday at 4 p.m. It's a fun little podcast where we just chat and hang out. And if you come watch us live, you can be interactive with us and ask any questions that you may have. We'll try to answer them for you. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.